Welcome to the Citizen Rising Women 2026 Executive Podcast. MCL stands on a bold promise, empowering the nation. And Absa stands on a bold conviction. Your story matters. And where empowerment meets stories, we arrive at this year's theme, Give to Gain. I'm honored to be with two leaders that are expanding the economic trajectory and the narrative of our nation. With me is Rosalind Mdolwa Muria, the MD of MCL, and the institution that is powering the Rising Woman platform, and Obedi Leiza, the MD of Absa Tanzania. Karibuni sana.
Asante sana, it's my pleasure.
What a beautiful introduction, I must
That was
say.
good.
Oh. Amazing. So, Rosalind, before you became a managing director, what shaped your belief about the potential of a woman?
Thank you very much for that question, Zoe. So before their corporate titles, I was a young girl. I was raised by women who carried responsibility, and they carried it very quietly in the household. These women had lots of weight on their shoulder. They took care of households, of children. They ran enterprises, unlimited resources, etc., etc. And they did it all with a lot of dignity, absorbing a lot of pressure. And they did all of this without applause, remember. So what really stood out for me was how visibility was never a part of their equation. And therefore, for me, Rising Woman becomes a platform that is very important because we are here, therefore, to shine a light and make visible the stories of these women that were otherwise invisible while the likes of myself were growing up.
Amazing. Most times, women tend to be underestimated or taken at face value, whilst there's so much more to a woman. You might look like a flower, of which you do, but there's so much more to you. You know, you have your intellect, you have your convictions, you have your purpose. Why do you think that tends to happen to women?
It's 100% true that, especially for women who find themselves in places of leadership, I tend to say we work double time because you have to believe, you have to actually rise beyond that perception, which you just so described aptly, of this flower. So I am definitely more than a flower. I am a mind, I am an educated woman, I'm a woman with experiences, and therefore breaking those biases become part of my job description when I walk into a boardroom, for example. But it does exist. It is a fabric of this society. And therefore, platforms like this become even more important because you get to showcase you get to peel that rose and get to the core of it through such visibility, platforms that give visibility and tell those stories a bit more structurally. But 100%, there is more to a woman than what just meets the eye or the biases that a society might carry about women.
Growing up, did you see women showcased as drivers of the economy?
That story, unfortunately, was not front and center. They existed, but they existed behind curtains. And where they were visible in the small spaces that they were not portrayed as, pioneers, as economic, voices that go to transform economies of countries. They were far and apart. But those days are now fizzling away. And, companies are being more deliberate about making visible such activity by women. So the short of the long is that I did not grow up seeing that at scale. Not to say it didn't exist, it existed, but it wasn't made visible structurally. Yes.
So now to you, Obedi, you are a titan of your industry, the financial sector. So definitely you've always had a knack for it. When you were young, what were your observations about women and economic opportunities?
Yeah, thank you very much. Growing up in Tanzania, I observed the strength of women early on, long before I understood the language of economic empowerment. I saw mothers, running families like CEOs in their own ways, and that would include managing budgets, solving crises one after the other, stretching limited resources for survival. And I happened to live in that kind of an environment because for the most part of my life, I was raised by a mother who was on her own for the most part. And therefore, what I'm talking about is actually from experience within my family. So the strength of women, the capabilities that they had in terms of running families, running households, like CEO, that was there. And I think it was quite visible in my early life. But what struck me later in life is that the capabilities for women was there, but I think the opportunities did not continue. And therefore, in terms of the economic participation, women have always been central to the economy of any society or a country. It's just that they have not been visible enough. So I think growing up, just to summarize, yes, the strength has been there. I observed women, including my mother, really, running a family like a CEO, juggling all the responsibilities. So that innate capability I've seen it. But I think later in life, I think what struck me, as I've said, is that the capability was there, but opportunity lacked. Mm-hmm. But also, women were always central to the economy. I think just that the visibility of them being central to the economy was not always there.
And do you ever witness now that a woman has that capability and that ability, but she is limited by access?
Yeah, oh yes, I think so many times. Personally, I've seen, quite extraordinary women with abilities in terms of their discipline, business acumen, and leadership potential struggle because of lack of, either formal collaterals, for those who are business women entrepreneurs. Some lacked access to networks. I think I've observed that so many times. And some of them lacked access to markets as well. And some of them lacked, confidence that the organization had to show that they are capable as well. So I think access has been one of the major factors, despite the fact that the abilities and the capabilities has always been there. But I think it's always, in terms of the structural impediment that has always been there, some of them are driven by our cultural norms and history. So I think talent was never a problem in terms of that through the history that I've just shared with you, but access was an issue. Yeah.
So as a girl dad, what kind of economic system do you want your daughter to inherit?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I have one daughter, 2 boys and 1 daughter. And I think in terms of the economic system that I envisage, I would like to see for my daughter and many other daughters in this country and the world, is an environment where leadership is determined based on competence and not gender. I think that's really what I would like to see. I would like to see an economic system where capital flows based on potential and not bias. Because sometimes that's exactly what we see. Capital flows based on bias, but I think what I would like to see is capital in terms of finances and all of that everyone needs flows, and it's being allocated based on the potential of the business itself, not on the bias. I would also want to see an economic system where my daughter's ambition is never described as unusual or aggressive and taken as is. So I think in summary, I would like to see an ecosystem where my daughter does not need a permission to rise, but equal opportunities to rise.
Amazing. I like that. You clocked that. So, Rosalind.
So back in those days, women were not visible. right? We saw women as caregivers, we saw them as nurturers, we saw them as background support systems, but never as drivers of GDP, policymakers, or framed as capital allocators. Yet they did these roles, but in invisibility, in the shadows. So all of this was happening. And therefore, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that narrative matters. And a girl cannot become what a girl does not see. And that is why platforms like this are very important.
Amazing. And your platform, The Rising Woman, has really evolved over 6 years from a place of celebration, rightfully so, to a place with specific outcomes and social impact. At the core of Rising Woman, what would you say sits there? Is it a platform? Is it a campaign? Is it a convention? What is it?
What a beautiful question. You're 100% right. We are in our 6th year of celebrating the Rising Woman Initiative, the Citizens Rising Woman Initiative. And truly what it is an ecosystem. It is an ecosystem that identifies voices, amplifies those voices, tells narratives, puts a record of activities around women, and serves as evidence. It has morphed itself and raised and risen to the occasion of what our society is walking as a journey in empowering the female alongside its many enabling spokes, right? So it is an ecosystem and not just a media campaign.
And why is it important for you that MCL moves beyond just telling stories of women to institutionalizing platforms like The Rising Woman?
The importance really lies in inclusivity and how this is an economic strategy, that inclusion of women and the inclusion of the female talent is an economic and a GDP discussion, right? It makes economic sense to include them. And therefore, this platform serves as a vehicle to bring all those voices from a policy perspective to institutional biases that perhaps need to be addressed through conversations like this and other showcasing of activities that institutions are undertaking to break down biases, to empowering the female through setting proper examples of what they can become. And therefore, through this platform, through this ecosystem, so to speak, get to bridge that gap.
Amazing. Obedi, this year, Absa has decided to partner with MCL for The Rising Woman 2026. Why? What is the reason behind that decision?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think from Absa's perspective, we believe that Rising Women is no longer a celebration platform. For us, it's a strategic platform. And if you look at this year's theme, Give to Gain, Elevate High Rise, I think it sits firmly at what we believe in Absa, which is investing in women is not charity, it's smart economics. And I think empowering women is fully embedded into the fabric of Absa as an organization. It's fully embedded into our lending practices. It's fully embedded in how we hire employees. It's fully embedded in how we promote employees. And therefore, I think what this theme, but also the platform gives us, it allows Absa now to move from intention to measurable outcome, which is why we thought, I think it's a good partnership that we need to have, because I think the outcome and the theme itself for this year in particular, I think resonate quite well with what we believe in.
Mm-hmm. And how does it tie in with the Absa belief that your story matters?
Yeah, it does. I think in Absa we say your story matters. It's a broader theme, but I think if you bring it home to the theme and the topic of the day, we firstly have our purpose, which kind of similar to what MCL has, which is empowering Africa's tomorrow together, one story at a time. And we believe you cannot empower Africa, or Tanzania for that matter, if you do not empower women. Because, they are part of this society, and of course the statistics show that they form 50%. So when we say your story matters, we believe that women business ideas matters. We believe that women leadership potential matters. And we believe that women economic opportunities matters. So we wanted to partner to kind of echo the same sentiment, as Absa together with Mwananchi. And data and statistics shows that women in particular, they are very resilient entrepreneurs. They are responsible borrowers. But I think above all, they are very good in building intergenerational wealth. And I think it was only befitting for us as Absa to really join hands to promote this theme this year, which aligns fully with our brand promise, which is Your Story Matters.
You also mentioned that this year's theme, Give to Gain, resonates with you. What does it mean from a banking perspective?
Yeah, I think this one means a lot, but I'll just use a simple example, which sometimes we see, that it says, you empower a woman, you empower a nation. So I think for women, Give to Gain, for us in banking and Absa in particular, we believe that when you give a woman leadership or mentorship development programs, you get a very strong leadership pipeline. You give them the opportunity, you develop them. Mm-hmm. As an organization, you gain a very strong leadership pipeline. You give women access to capital. You get sustainable economic development as a country. And I think that's really how I look at it. Economically, when women are empowered, when they are given access to capital, then, Absa as an organization, Tanzania as a country, we tend to benefit. You give women more representation in decision-making organs like board and senior management and the parliament and the political circle. As I've said, it becomes more balanced. And I think there is a research that has been done, and it is said that when inclusivity is there, then there is increase in productivity as well. So I think we should not look at this as when we give to women what we need to do for them, there is nothing we can gain. As organizations, as societies, as countries, there is a lot that we can gain. Because as they say, empower women, empower the nation.
Amazing. Looks like more exponential growth happens.
Indeed.
In that same spirit, Rosalind, in the first Rising Woman article, you were quoted saying that when we give to women, we do not lose power, we multiply it. What did you mean by that? Can you expound that for us?
Yes, and it's exactly what Obedi was talking about here. So you see, power, when you give power to a woman, you multiply it. And basically, it borrows from the non-fixed asset nature of power. So you see, power or empowering a woman is not like a fixed asset like land is, that when you divide it or when you break it down, it becomes smaller, finite, more and more and more. It's not that. It's actually quite on the contrary. When you give power to a woman, when you empower a woman, it has a compounding effect, which is what Obedi was talking about. It has a compounding effect because when you give her access to boardrooms, when you give her access to spaces where she otherwise was sidelined, she brings her talents. She earns more. Suddenly she's now becoming, taking on roles that traditionally perhaps were not female-led. She's taken on that role. That effect is compounded at a society level. So her household benefits. Her children start to go to better schools. Her influence in the home in terms of where to invest becomes it compounds itself, and she meets her husband in decision making because now she's enabled. And therefore that is the compounding effect that empowering a woman has. And that is what I meant when I made that statement.
You've clocked it. But then when I look at the global playing or operating environment, I see there's a lot of power plays and a lot of geopolitical tensions. Do you think that institutions tend to think that they lose power when they give it away or when they share it with others?
Yes, those that have not woken up to the factor of the compounding effect of empowerment, they definitely are losing out on an opportunity, because when you're not being inclusive at an institutional level, you get in the way of scaling, whether it's your product, your ideas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And therefore, I see no reason why institutions would carry that bias, because they're getting in the way of their own accelerated growth.
Have you experienced the multiplication effect that you talk about?
I see it every day in my household, for example. I see it at the office. So speaking about a personal example, today I'm able to have certain conversations with my children. I have 2 boys. I'm able to have certain conversations from a place of experience and share with them what a journey in leadership looks like, empowering them further mentally beyond perhaps what they would have seen just from their father. Now they're able to see a woman through the lens of their mother as an empowered woman and carry that truth as part of their belief system and be able to pass it down to their children and other spaces within which they would find themselves.
Obedi believes that empowering the nation is empowering the women. Is that so?
100%. It begins there, but it doesn't end there. It begins there. That inclusivity happens at that level where women are empowered and allowed in spaces at a national level, but male allies are a part of this story. Male allies are a part of this story, and together they make the foundation from which a nation can launch itself economically. GDP can therefore grow because there is inclusivity from that angle, because of these foundations that are there. Male allies as well as female empowerment.
Amazing. So we'll get to that 50-50 by 2050.
We hope so. We're working very hard to get there because it makes economic sense.
So let's step away from institutional talk. Now I want to speak directly to you on your core beliefs. Rosalind, what do you believe when it comes to women and power? What are your intrinsic beliefs?
My belief there is very simple, and I see the misconceptions in spaces where people haven't researched the empowerment space, for example. Women are not looking for power, empowerment, so that they can dominate. No. We simply want to contribute because we believe in ourselves, and therefore we want society and spaces and structures that can absorb us as contributing members of the society. So we're here to contribute, enabling spaces within which we find ourselves to scale even more further.
And do you believe that Tanzania can reach its full economic potential without fully empowering women?
Absolutely not. It's a mathematical equation. Because 1 + 1 is 2. 1 + 1 is not 0, for example. So mathematically, if we're saying 50%, 52, 54% of the society will remain out of the picture, it means you're working with half the labor force, you're working with half the talent, half the minds. So from a mathematical perspective, it's a simple no.
So it does not make economic sense.
It doesn't make economic sense to not have enabling policies, to not be deliberate about addressing the biases that exist, to not have mentorship programs, for example, that empower the disadvantaged female or any member of the society who is disadvantaged because of this structure that has prevailed for so long. It doesn't make economic sense to not address those issues. And therefore, platforms like this become more and more important because they allow us to have real, honest conversations around how we can diffuse that risk.
Now to you, Betty, what are your core beliefs when it comes to women and power?
Yeah, thank you. I think what I believe is that power becomes more balanced, power becomes more ethical, and power becomes more sustainable when women are at the table. And therefore, diverse leadership, as you know, and I think there is research that has shown that diverse leadership produces better decisions. And better decisions produces better outcome. And when you measure outcome, that is productivity there. So I firmly believe that power should not be concentrated. Power should be inclusive. And I always reflect on the nature itself. You know, sometimes when you look at the demographic, the way the population is, it's always naturally balanced, you know, in terms of number, 50-50. People go in their own lives, doing their own decisions, but it just happens that it's always balanced at 50-50. So that is God's way to ensure that, you know, we operate that way. But why is it that we as human, mechanically, we try to force it otherwise? You know, we throw ourselves off balance when that happens. So I think to answer your question, my firm belief is, you know, when power is shared, when power is inclusive, it becomes more balanced, it becomes more ethical, and it becomes more sustainable, which means it will continue to do good more than harm for the longer term when it is more inclusive.
And do you believe that our country can reach its full economic potential without fully empowering that 50%, the women?
Not really, not at all. I think I would say mathematically it's impossible, as I've said, because, you know, women make almost 50% of us as people in this country. But I think the reality is they're so much underrepresented in terms of capital ownership. You know, that balance is not there. They are so much underrepresented in leadership. They are also so much underrepresented in enterprise growth. So that means that you have 50% of the population of a country that is underutilized. You can imagine what that does to a country or a society when 50% of your resource, natural resource, is not really playing at their optimal level because of so many reasons, including access, as we've discussed. So mathematically, it is impossible. You cannot really, a country or society cannot reach its full economic potential if women are not empowered. So I would summarize by saying, women empowerment is not optional for growth. I think it's a requirement for growth.
I like that. So let's do a bit more math. In your space of operation, do you think women are riskier or more reliable borrowers?
I just think that risk is individual. I think that's what I can say. It's not gendered. When we look at risk from a lending perspective, we don't really perceive a certain gender to be more riskier than the other. Risk is always individual. Individual people, individual companies. That's really at a perceptual level. But I think the reality is, using data and statistics are showing a completely different picture. We tend to see good repayment performance from women-led businesses. That's the data, at least what we saw. And why is that? I think we all know that, women, they plan, carefully. I think that's a fact. We also know that women are responsible borrowers. When they decide to borrow, I think that's out of careful, responsibly planned, initiative that they have. They also prioritize repayments of loan. I mean, when they have a loan, they think about it, which is why, this Vikoba type of organizations and many other informal organizations, when women are involved in terms of borrowing, I think statistics show that they tend to perform very well in their repayments. So I think to answer your question, no, we don't look at risk, at a gender level. It's individual, but I think the data and the statistics are showing that women perform better in terms of loan repayments when they took a borrowing from a loan. And precisely that's just because we feel that they are more, when they borrow, it's the responsible borrowing. They prioritize repayment, they plan accordingly. and all of that. So yeah, I think they are not, I would say, using data, they are less riskier. But that's not how we look at risk when we want to deal with a customer. I think we judge based on an individual circumstances to make decision. But I think afterward, the realities and the outcome are showing that women tend to perform better.
Amazing. Now, Rosaline, as a media leader, do you believe that narratives shape economic opportunities and those decision-making processes?
Absolutely. It 100% does. Narratives matter, right? And narratives matter because they increase investor confidence. They change perception, right? They address institutional biases that exist. So say, for example, if we constantly portray women as small-scale operators, in a way we're capping their potential. And you see how now narrative comes into play. By now starting to showcase women in boardrooms, starting to showcase women as leaders of running institutions, innovators, creators, multi-millionaires, and empire builders. When you start to do that, you do that through narrative. And when that sticks, perceptions shift. Glass ceilings get bursted, opportunities meet and find this woman where she is, and the entire nation thrives.
There's quite a lot of preconceived notions around visibility. A lot of women especially tend to think that visibility is vanity, or you're showing off, or you're putting yourself out there and being loud unnecessarily so. But what do you really think visibility is? And how does Mwananchi Communications Limited ensure that women are visible, not just in March, but throughout the year?
Right. No, thank you for that question. And you're right. Visibility, to me, you speak about vanity. Visibility is not vanity. It's actually responsibility, right? And accountability. So say, for example, look at the more than 300 women that we have profiled within the Rising Woman ecosystem. Look at the 55 institutions that we have also profiled, showcasing or keeping and tracking evidence of what institutional reforms are happening within these institutions to empower women or to drive the inclusion, the inclusivity agenda. So all that is visibility, right? The women who now have moved on to receive funding because they were made visible through the platforms, they received awards, et cetera, they become accountable to the audiences that saw them perform in this manner. And therefore, to me, visibility is more than just, it's not vanity. Let's keep that straight. Visibility is not vanity. It is a platform within which you can become responsible and become accountable to people who are your followers, who would be your clients, who would be your potential employees, and plus. Yes.
Amazing. I love that straight talk on visibility. Now, to you, Betty, does consistent visibility change how you perceive a female-led business and also perceive risk around a female-led business?
Yeah, thank you. I think overall, I believe visibility for business, and in particular business that are led by women, but also visibility for aspiring women leaders, because it's both ways. We have women that have the potential, they have the talents within organizations. Visibility is also very important for them. How do they rise up through the ranks if they're not being seen, if they're not visible? As for businesses, obviously, you need to connect with your customers. You need to be able to connect with your suppliers. You need to be able to connect with your banks and other stakeholders that you need in the business ecosystem. And I think visibility builds trust. visibility builds credibility. And people need to consistently be able to learn about your business. Mm-hmm. And then if you have, a strategy around how you want to create that visibility, it does really help. It helps with your customers, it helps with your vendors, it also helps with your banks. When you're in need of finance, other than the documents that the bank will require to assess you, but I think if you're more visible, they can learn more about you, in various ways. It does help to add on to the documentation. And when you talk about visibility, it's good that nowadays we have social media and all the, a digital platform which you can optimize visibility. But I think visibility can come in so many ways. Within the organization, for example, for aspiring women leaders, it can come in the way you show up internally. Because, as I've said, the higher you climb in the organization ladder, it's not more about the technical ability of what you can do. Mm-hmm. It becomes more about, can people trust you with your judgment? Mm-hmm. How articulate are you in the way you articulate issues? Mm-hmm. Are you a team player? Mm-hmm. Do you take ownership, of various items and projects at an organization level? So at an organization level, visibility can look that way. That when you are there in the organization, don't just stay in your lane in terms of the department or the unit or the role that you are doing, but have this cross-functional interaction, with other people in the various departments, but also speak out. Because, as a leader, people need to hear, who you are, how you think, what are your views. But if you don't speak out, if you don't show up, in events, in meeting, then internally, people will not really have the ability to interrogate you to reach a conclusion that either they can trust you or how credible you are. And therefore, sometimes you do have to take a risk. And in many times, when you take that risk, it becomes positive. I think it's just that self-doubt that many women especially continue to have, thinking that maybe what they're going to say will not look good. The question they're going to ask will not be the right question. But I think, the bottom line is in the ability and the confidence to start speaking, and practicing it. So I think there's that way. But from a banking perspective, as far as our customers and clients are concerned, it does the same effect, which is the more we see you as a business, obviously it increases our assessment and more information that we can use to assess you. So I think for me, I would say visibility is strategic. As long as you do it more strategically, you take digital platform as a leverage because they're there. They can exponentially give you that platform to reach many stakeholders. And nowadays, as you know, businesses and even women leaders and even men leaders employ the services of professional brand builders that can help you to do visibility in a proper way if you don't know how to go about it. So yeah, I think visibility comes with accountability because the moment you put yourself out there, that you are this type of business or you are this type of an individual, then it's about how consistently you live with that narrative. And therefore you have to be accountable in the way you show up, in the way you behave, in the way you do things to ensure that you can maintain that narrative. Because if it is erratic, people will not believe you. So I would say visibility is very good. It is a strategic lever in the way I look at it, both for business but also for business leaders. But it also brings with it accountability, that you cannot walk away from it. Yeah.
So what we are doing to ensure that it is not just a March celebration, this platform, like I said earlier, is an ecosystem that is sustainable throughout the year, and therefore beyond just the March 6th celebration where we're going to have a big event inviting over 600 participants, bringing in institutions, individuals, women, allies, male allies, agents, whoever plugs into this ecosystem and celebrating our success, it's what we then do post that day, which for us is in continuing the narrative. Remember, I spoke about how narratives change perception. So that is the responsibility we take on as Mwananchi Communications, to perpetually give the platforms, give institutions, give contributors on this ecosystem access to our platforms to hold these discussions, like we're now doing with Absa. They're able to showcase some of the institutional mechanisms they have in place to break institutional biases around female inclusion and empowerment. That is the responsibility we'll continue to take on. And therefore, even when you look at our editorial policy, we ensure that it translates to that level, that not only are we able to tell these stories, mentorship programs, are they in place to ensure that the capacity to capture these stories is in place. We track female readership, because it's not good enough to speak of this included segment of the society that was otherwise set aside, but are they following these narratives, following them enough for them to be empowered as well? So if you look at stats today, the female inclusion index is sitting at about 25%, which is a big stretch and a gap to where we would like it to be. We would like for it to sit at 35% at a minimum by next year. What does this mean? This means that we must have platforms like this that includes these voices of females that are otherwise not part of the conversation. They need to see more of themselves, so that perception then changes from a self-belief point of view. And as much as institutions are doing their part, as much as economies are following them to empower them with access to finance, etc., what is that self-belief that that woman is left with? So that for us is the readership index that we're tracking very closely.
Amazing. So our stories and our voices matters. You have a keen understanding of the economic market or the financial system in Tanzania. What are the structural barriers that are still impeding women when it comes to them accessing finance?
Yeah, thank you. I think I would say the common ones, I would say 4 of them. There could be many, but I think the biggest ones and the leading one is really around the requirement around collateral. Because when borrowings are given, of course, they need to be secured. And the prominent kind of security that is broadly used is property, whether it's land or properties on land. And we know, because of historical, reasons, because of, societal norms, women in Africa and in Tanzania in particular, they don't have ownership to land, they don't have ownership to properties. And therefore, when they come to financial institutions to request for financing, majority of them, they do not have title deeds that shows that they own the properties that can be used to secure finance. So I think for me that's the biggest one. To the extent that that can be resolved, and I know there's a bit of progress that has been made there, but it continues to be a structural challenge for women to be able to obtain finance. I think the second one I would say is the informality around businesses, especially the small and medium-sized enterprises. You'll find businesses have been there 5, 10 years. Some of them have grown to certain levels, but they're still not registered. They're not recognized anywhere. With our government agencies like BRELA or elsewhere, TRA. So I think there's a lot of informality. Businesses are there, women have been doing them. Some of them have really grown to certain decent levels. But when they now come to a financial institution to want finance, obviously banks are formal organizations and like to deal with other formal organizations. So when they ask for registration documents, when they ask for tax certificates, some of these businesses, and most of them, they don't have. And therefore, that requirement limits their ability to be able to secure finance from a bank. So I think to the extent that women can really address this and formalize their businesses, however small that they might be, but at least the different levels of formalization, that can go a long way to increase their chances of being able to access capital and then finance from a bank or any other institution. I think number 3, I would say, is risk bias. I think we've discussed this earlier. There is a tendency where in this society, maybe some corridors would perceive women as more risky. But as I've shared earlier, I think data show otherwise from a lending perspective. But we still have these traditional norms of viewing women as if they don't know how to do business. They will not succeed. And therefore, when they approach people who have got capital or funds, there's this bias that I don't trust you because you don't know how to run a business because you're a woman, which is absolutely wrong. So I think that continues to be another challenge, and I'm sure platforms like this one, Rising Women, and others will go a long way to address this challenge and educate the society on that front. I think the last one, which is not the least, is the scaling limitation, which means that capital availability for growth is also not there. There are many businesses that have been established. They lacked capital when they started, which is lack of startup capital, and they continue to lack capital even today. So they cannot scale up their businesses. And I think that comes down to the rest of the other 3 reasons I've just shared, so which is collateral, informality, and the risk bias. So I think in summary, I would put it that way. And if you ask me, Absa has played a part and a role in trying to, resolve some of these challenges to our women, business owners. Last 3 years, we established a dedicated gender-responsive product. As I've said earlier, I think these matters of women empowerment are fully embedded in the way we do stuff. So we have an account that is called She Business Account. And we came up with this product because we understood the challenges, exactly what I've been sharing with you, that financial inclusion for women is not at the right level. Some of them were fearing that maybe banking services are very costful. It's very expensive to own a bank account because there are charges and commission, you transfer money. So we made it easier for them. For this particular account, there is no charge. You operate your account completely free of charge. You can receive your money, make your payments, no charges. I think the idea there we wanted to achieve is make it affordable, make it attractive for women in the just to own an account and create that formality that they have an account, they put their money there, and they have a history. But this is not only a bank account. I think it goes with what we call capacity building. We train these women entrepreneurs. We have partnered with other organizations, including TRA and some audit firms. For them, we organize seminars and conferences where we call these SME women entrepreneurs. And we call the audit firm, the tax consultant, some of the TRA representatives to talk to them about their finances, about tax responsibilities and obligations that they have, to basically educate them. Because capacity building is also one of the key requirements that women entrepreneurs need to continue to thrive in their businesses. But I think thirdly, we have partnered with microfinance institutions. As you know, being a bigger Pan-African organization, sometimes we can't be able to serve each and every segment of our customer base. We like to serve them, women entrepreneurs, but we do not have the experience and the skill. And therefore, partnership works for us. So we've partnered with a dedicated microfinance institution where we provide funding for them. So Absa gives this microfinance a loan at affordable price, and this microfinance now gives specific small loans to women group businesses. So we're actually funding women business, but indirectly. And why is that working properly? Because we do not have the experience of dealing directly with small business, but this microfinance, that's their area. That's their forte. And I think we thought us coming together, we, having the muscles in terms of capital, and them having the skills and experience of dealing with SME women group, that was a very clever partnership to enable us as an organization to reach those women group. So we have been providing funding. I think it's working very well. And that's just another way that Absa Bank is doing to ensure that, these issues around collateral requirement and the fact that we know women do not have titles, how do we address that? We go through the microfinance, they have their own credit requirement, we give them the money, and then they lend it over. And then they follow, because they have the skills and experience to be able to track these women to ensure repayments are coming at expected levels. So I think, that's just example on how Absa Bank is also contributing in solving some of these challenges that I've just shared with you.
Yeah, amazing. I can also commend Absa for one of your solutions to the first barrier, collateral requirements. You have the commercial asset financing solution, where the asset being bought, it's the collateral itself. That's a brilliant value proposition for your clients. And Rosalind, do you think storytelling can dismantle these 4 barriers that Obedi has expounded upon?
Well, storytelling alone cannot dismantle the collateral issues, but what it can do is start shifting biases along these topics. So policy discussions can emanate from storytelling, the profile risk that Obedi touched on. So trying to put a face to the risk that, for example, in this case, the bank identifies as a woman who has this set of profile risks that are profiled in this manner, putting a face to it, dehumanizing the risk itself through an actual form. That helps to shift the narrative of some of the biases that exist in institutions, but also encouraging innovation at institutional level. Institutions can be very comfortable with the status quo. Yes, they will follow the money and where it makes sense to invest, but the discomfort only comes from storytelling. So when we tell one story and we create competition, perhaps, amongst certain cohorts of within an industry. So all this comes from storytelling, right? So there's the comfort levels that are now disrupted. And then eventually you find policy starts to follow that narrative, because we are just a mirror holding, as media, we just hold a mirror to society and we show that this is what is emerging as themes from different pockets of society. So policy, therefore, follows on the back of that perception which is shifting, which can only start with storytelling.
Amazing. So now let's go back to one core area of giving to gain, mentorship. How has mentorship enhanced you as a person?
Well, I like this topic because I don't think if I did not that I don't think, I know for a fact that if I did not have mentors, I wouldn't be here. So departure point number 1 is, what is mentorship? For me, what that word meant, or rather the experience that I had of the mentorship practice, is a person that disrupts your comfort zone as well. It's a bit like storytelling in media. And a mentor's not there to praise you. They're there to tell you you actually have potential that you're not seeing. And I know this because I've walked a similar path to yours. And maybe I made some mistakes and I was course corrected, and I'd like to share that with you. So I need you to focus on growing in this area so that you can get to your dreams, et cetera, et cetera. So mentorship is a big piece of once we, for example, in this case in point, we're talking about rising women, we identify them through storytelling and narrative building. You identify, you showcase, you see the gaps, and then you layer mentorship onto that entire ecosystem. So the Rising Woman ecosystem definitely has a layer of mentorship, because within that, you can then see how an identified talent can meet a potential mentor that works with them for them to reach their full potential, because ultimately we're looking for that inclusion, we're looking for that parity, which we have discussed to a good end, that it makes economic sense.
And so this year we're going to see mentorship pairings at the Rising Woman.
That is our vision.
I love that. Obedi, who has mentored you and how did that change your trajectory?
Yeah, I think for me, from an experience perspective, I've always looked at mentorship in two different dimensions. One is active mentorship, where you intentionally have a mentor and you have a structured way of doing the mentorship, where you meet quarterly, monthly, and you give each other feedback and counseling. But I think the other one is what I call passive mentorship. And I think for me, from experience, both works. Throughout my career, I've always benefited a lot more than the active mentorship from a passive mentorship. And what I've been doing is really to kind of, in the organizations that I've worked, kind of consciously select a leader within that organization that I'm truly inspired by him or her, without him or her knowing that I've just selected him or her to be my mentor, and intentionally follow that individual. You know, when I'm in meetings, very observant in the way he or she addresses the meeting, make decisions, the way he or she talks. You know, and that throughout my career, I've picked, you know, some goodies in each one of them in the different organizations that I've worked on. And that really changed a lot, because in some moments when they handle matters, I look at them and say, no, I think this is not how it should have been handled. If I were in his position or her position, I would have done this those days. But now, having arrived at this level, and in terms of what I do today, I think there's a lot I've picked from how I saw them handling crises, handling meetings, handling difficult situations, handling conflicts. So I think I would summarize to say mentorship is very, very key, whether you do it passively or whether you do it actively. And I think it has really changed me, and I'm sure without it, I'm not sure if I would have been where I am. There's a lot on me that I've picked up from the various leaders that I really was inspired by them throughout my career.
And what structured mentorship commitments is your institution prepared to make this year?
Yeah, we have several. And of course, the one that I feel passionate about is Elevator. We have a program, it has started. It's sponsored by myself. I am the mentor of a select few group of aspiring women leaders. I think there are 10 or 12 of them. And we meet monthly and quarterly for different kind of conversation. I've done like 3 sessions with them. And it's going very, very well. Very, very well. We talk about the last topic that we discussed was how do you gain confidence when you speak to executives and board members. These are middle-level managers, women with potential that have been selected through the process. And I think the feedback that I'm getting from them and from our human capital department is that they have been transformed.
Beautiful.
It's been 7 months now since we started, but I think the feedback that is coming from them, and a few of them who initially were not feeling themselves in terms of self-doubt, confidence, not being able to speak out, today they're able to do that. We call it Elevator, which kind of resonates and aligns with Rising Women. So that's one that I sponsor myself. I do it, and it will be continuous in terms of that. We do have another one which is part of the Absa group as well. It's called Women in Leadership. We have a select group of women as well who attend several mentorship sessions with senior women leaders. We do have women leaders at Absa, and I'm proud to say that out of the 4 business divisions, we have 4 business divisions, retail banking, business banking, corporate banking, and global markets. Out of these 4, 3 of them have been led by women directors.
Beautiful.
Which is quite an achievement, I think, in the society that we live in. And that was intentional, and we are very proud because the progress and the contribution that I've been making has been quite significant. So what we are doing with women in leadership, these senior directors, they are mentoring the middle level managers. So each one of them has a group of ladies that are in the middle managers level. They're mentoring, just to learn from them how and what path and what challenges they encountered along the way. And I think that is good as well. It has to be a mix of both, senior women leaders sharing their experiences with upcoming one, but also people like myself at an organization level also share my experiences. So we have, I think these 2 are the flagship, and I think they're working very well at this moment in time.
Mwananchi Communications Limited has the Rising Woman, which has mentorship as a core pillar. What are the commitments that you're making this year when it comes to that element?
Thank you. In addition to what we are convening as a platform and an ecosystem for women empowerment, the Thecitizen Rising Woman this year has a big commitment around moving mentorship from goodwill to now a more structured product. And therefore, this speaks to the pairings, to programs and partnerships that we're going to enter with other institutions that are like-minded in order to elevate and also mentor skill sets, for example, that we're seeing as gaps, emerging gaps from the convened voices through the Rising Woman initiatives. And therefore, partnerships, structural partnerships, but also moving away from mentorship being goodwill to something now tangible that we can come in 2027's the Rising Woman Initiative, showcase the results of it.
I love the sound of that.
Stay
I can't
tuned.
wait to see that. So we've heard this before. When women rise, society gains. What do you think, the both of you, that Tanzania will gain when women are fully empowered? We can start with the woman herself.
Thank you very much for yielding to me first for that question, because I think I'm going to take away some points from Obedi. But without a doubt, Tanzania will gain, right? Tanzania will gain positive macroeconomics and microeconomics because an empowered female population means there's more productivity, there is more contribution to GDP, there is empowered households, there is empowered innovators that come up with real solutions from the grassroots, etc., etc. And therefore, to me, that response speaks to the economics of inclusion. And all of these that I mentioned, and then some, is what Tanzania stands to gain as a contribution there for having women. It's not charity. It is not charity. It is inclusiveness for the purpose of advancing the nation economically.
So there's a business aspect to women
100%.
empowerment.
100%.
What?
Yeah, I think just to add, without repeating what Rosalina said, it's very clear. When women rise, poverty levels declines. When women lead, organizations become more accountable. We cannot afford to underutilize a half of our talent base. As I've said earlier, 50% of us are men and women, and therefore, in order for us to become more competitive as a country, economically, regionally and globally, there is no way we can afford to underutilize half of our talent base. Because the way we look at people is, this is the talent base. It's our number one natural resource. And therefore, if they're not playing at their full potential, then we lose our competitive edge against the rest. And of course, the world is now very competitive. And I think the examples are there in other countries where women are really empowered, fairly represented. You can look at the Scandinavian country, the Finlands, the Netherlands, the Denmarks, the Norway, where, the level of women representation in business, in politics, and everywhere is at the right level, which is almost 50-50, and where those countries are. So I think just to add, we cannot afford. There is no way a country can progress competitively and faster if we leave half of our talent base behind. And I think the point is, and this is not only a social narrative, I think it's an economic rationality, in my view.
So it's not just is it a social agenda? Is it a national economic strategy? Is it a personal agenda? It's women empowerment.
It's not. I think for me it's both. It's both a social justice and an economic strategy. But I think this is a classic example where social justice and economic strategy aligns very well. It's not charity, it's a requirement. It's economic principle. So on one side, yes, socially responsible society will ensure that every member of the society is empowered, and I think it's a social thing to do. But I think more than that, in my view, it's an economic strategy. Yeah.
Oh, what do you think of that, Rosalind?
I would tend to agree that it's an economic strategy with social consequences. Social consequences for not addressing the economic strategy. You perpetuate and enlarge the gaps that we see as a result of not having inclusion. And therefore, it's both, but in that order. First, economic strategy, but with a social consequence.
So if Rising Woman, the Citizen Rising Woman, if it disappeared tomorrow, what will Tanzania lose?
Tanzania would lose a platform and an ecosystem that convenes voices on this social and economic agenda. We would lose the institutional value that we have created. Remember, we have identified, we have honored, we have showcased, we have de-risked profiles, we have empowered companies to even innovate, we have identified a talent pool. All that will be gone. So we cannot afford to let it slip away.
Amazing. I like that. You've also recognized women. Yeah. And Obedi, imagine a Tanzania where financial institutions stop intentionally empowering women. What does Tanzania lose? What will it lose?
Yeah, I think there will be many losses if I can look at it that way. So I think Rosalina has talked about the economics. Economic growth, when everyone is included, then there's a huge potential for a country to progress further. So we will lose our momentum as far as economic growth is concerned. We will lose our financial inclusion momentum. I think the government and the BOT is doing a fantastic job to ensure that all segments of the society are financially included. And therefore, if women are not empowered in the manner that we've discussed, that momentum will be lost in the way. I think we will also lose household economic stability. As I've said, women plays a significant role in ensuring that household economic and income stability is there, and therefore, if we do not empower them, as we've discussed, either in terms of capital allocation or leadership, we will lose the ability of many families to have stable income consistently. We will also lose leadership diversity, and I think there's many benefits that comes with it. If we do not empower women, they will not be well represented in power, and I think I shared with you the benefits of having balanced power, and therefore leadership diversity will not be there. I think competitively, regionally, and globally, we will lose our competitive edge. This world is increasingly becoming more competitive. It's about competition. We want to be better than the rest within Africa, better than the rest in the world. If you exclude 50% of your talent base, we will lose that competitive edge. And I think, frankly speaking, as banks and financial institutions, if we do not continue to empower women, we will frankly lose our credibility as well as organizations that are committed to inclusive growth. So at a national level, I think that's what will happen, but at an organization level, we stand to lose our credibility as organizations that are committed to inclusive growth.
I like that. To close on a positive note, what is one thing or one element you're going to give to gain?
As Mwananchi Communications, the one thing that we will always continually give when it comes to this topic is evidence. We will continue to produce that evidence and showcase successes and shine a light on biases and areas that need us to still have pertinent conversations to make a shift so that we can continue to be a viable destination for investment. We can continue to socially empower our society, economically enable them. And therefore, that is my commitment. We will continue to become a place where evidence is archived so that girls can become empowered, especially young girls, because they cannot become what they cannot see.
I love that. What about Absa? What are you giving to gain?
Yeah, I think we will give leadership development programs. We will continue. I think that's what we've been doing quite well. We'll continue to give that. And I think the benefits have been seen. We are enjoying the benefits now. And I'm sure those benefits will be even more sustainable if we continue to give in terms of mentorship, in terms of training opportunities, and other programs that will ensure that women within the organization continue to get that exposure and experience, to practice and learn and grow. So we'll continue to give that. But I think more importantly, we will continue to, elevate our customers, especially women entrepreneurs. As I've shared with you, we have done very dedicated product solutions just for them. We'll continue to do that. We'll continue to provide funding, either directly or through partners, as we have been doing. We'll continue to capacitate them in terms of training, to educate, and ensure that they continue to become more financially included. So I think our commitment is really to ensure that women continue to be financially included, because at this moment in time, there's a significant number of women that are outside of the financial ecosystem. We want to play our role. We want to give more in terms of that, to ensure that more and more of them can be brought into the financial system for the benefit of the country. And I think, generally speaking, when we say we want to empower women, we are not choosing a certain segment of the society. We are choosing Tanzanians' future. It's about the country. So we do not have the bias of saying it's about women. No. I think it's about the future of Tanzania, to ensure that everyone is fairly included and represented as well. So I think we'll give more to our own resources in the organization to bring them up, but of course with our customers, dedicated solution for women that will ensure that their business continue to grow and their story will continue to matter.
I am inspired. Thank you so much for your time. Empowering the nation requires platform. Your story requires listening. Giving to gain requires courage. When we give intentionally, we gain stronger families, we gain resilient economies, we gain innovation, we gain national progress. Leadership is not about holding power. It is about multiplying it. Thank you.